Now I'm very excited to welcome back one of my longest and most knowledgeable guests when it comes to handicapping college football to the odds breakers and my partner on Better Odds Sports Betting and Sports Wagering, Mr. Kyle Hunter from HunterSportsPicks.com. You can follow him on Twitter at Kyle Hunter Picks. And this segment is being brought to you by BetRivers.com. For a 100% sign up bonus up to $250, please visit BetRivers and use the promo code ODDS22. Terms, conditions, and location apply. Kyle, football season is finally here, my man. College football. I think secretly you and I might like college football a little bit more than the pros, but we don't have to tell everybody that. No, we just did. But anyways, how excited are you, my man?
Oh man, I love this time of the year. We've spent a lot of time prepping for this, and now here it's about to be the games, right? You look through all the magazines and all the notes, and take so many notes for many months, and now the actual games are going to be on the screen. You can't beat this time of the year. Yeah, I secretly do like college football better. College football and college basketball is a really, really close call. If you ask me which I like better during football season, I say football. If you ask me during basketball, I'd probably say basketball. So just love this time of the year. I think the college sports are great, and we got some games that kind of whet the appetite a little bit here on week 0, right? And then some really good games for week 1.
Let's face it, Kyle, these week 0 games are the ones you watch anyway.
Yeah, we're going to watch them.
Yeah, we're all going to watch them. It's just funny. In October, November, some of us will be watching the Alabamas and the, the big names, the Ohio States, but Kyle will definitely be watching who we bet on in these Conference USA and MAC conferences. So that's always cool about Kyle. But something I respect a lot, because sometimes you find more value in the smaller conferences. It's true. And there's less information out there, but the more you dig, you can beat the sports books to the information. I think that's very important. Beating the market in general, because that's what it really is. It's the sports books are responsible for the opening line, more or less. The market, more or less, in general, where the lines are, unless the sports book wants to gamble a little bit on some of the sides that they like. But anyways, my man, Kyle, I have to ask you, what was your college football record last year?
Oh yeah, 53-27 college football season last year, 66%. Now, Kiev, I want to say, because I'm always honest, transparent, don't expect 66% from me all the time, everybody. I mean, we always like to be transparent with everything that we do here as well. 66% is not something that people can consistently do. However, 80 plays, Kiev, is a little bit lower than I usually have in a season. I think I'm going to up the volume a bit this year. There was a little bit of unknown here the last couple seasons with the COVID, and I think things have improved as far as what we know on depth charts and who's going to be playing. And my volume has generally been higher than 80 plays. And I do think I'll have more than 80 plays this year. So hopefully it can be a really profitable season again. My totals have done really well long-term, 57% on all my totals dating back to 2009. I think that's about 1,200 plays. So really good sample size there. So if you want to join me, certainly check out HunterSportsPicks.com or the odds breakers there. Got some packages available and some early bird specials.
Yes, we do have Kyle's football package available right now. Football 22 gets you $100 off that thing. Only good till the end of this month. Check him out. And yeah, and Kyle, the most transparent man I know. Still, long term, that's the number that you love. And hey, he was great last year at 66%. Not saying that's sustainable, but it's also could be somewhat repeatable. Kyle could have 2 good years in a row, 3 good years. That's how you have great records. So I'm all for Kyle Hunter picks right here. I think he's going to do it great again. And I just remember how when you were waiting for regression last year, this never really happened. You just kept rolling and rolling and rolling. So proud of you, man.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I will say, Kiev, real quick, regression has hit me in baseball. So hopefully it's getting out of the way here in baseball so that I can start out college football strong, right? I started really hot in baseball, and I've had a rough run here of late, but baseball can be a little bit tough in the months of August and September. So I'm excited to get college football underway, and then the NFL will be here shortly. So let's get to some of this college football talk.
Yes, let's do it, my man. So let's talk about some of the ways that you prep for totals preseason. And we're going to get into a little bit here, talking a little bit about coaches, but without obviously revealing too much of your secrets, what do you look for?
Yeah, Kiev, the first thing I do is I want to look for teams that are different than what they were last year. Whether that means a bunch of kids transferred in that weren't there last year, whether it mean more importantly, a coaching change or a schematic change. Um, I'll say I've said it this way before, and I'll say it again. Like a team like Iowa, we know what Iowa's going to be, right? I mean, Iowa's been the same thing for what 20 some years since Kirk Ferentz has been there. They're not very good on offense. They're exceptional on defense. They're good in special teams. They're going to win games, and you say, how did they win that game? But that's what they do every year. They win a lot of low scoring games. But you have other teams that have these wholesale changes as far as head coach, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. And really, the offensive coordinator is the thing I would look at first if I were bettors, because a lot of people see the head coach changes, but kind of miss out on the offensive coordinator changes where there's a big schematic difference. We want to look for those teams that are going to play something completely different than last year, because the odds makers have a hard time setting something that is unknown. So the more unknown there is for the odds makers, the better chance we have to find some value early on, especially in those under the radar games like Kiev was talking about earlier. It's harder for them to set a number, or they're not going to pay as much attention to a number in a Sun Belt as they are in the SEC. Because let's face it, not near as many people are going to bet the Sun Belt or Conference USA or something like that as they are Alabama and Georgia. If Alabama and Georgia change the way they play, they're going to update that one really quick. You're not going to be able to ride that one for very long. If Louisiana Monroe changes the way they're playing or something, that's going to take a while. You could have several weeks to ride that one. I think that's the first thing I would do is I'd look for those changes. I would look for, especially in the smaller conferences, a key player that's gone, because the drop off in the small conferences is much bigger than the big conferences. One of the things we've talked about before, Kiev, is depth charts are really important. The second string and third string guys, some of these, Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, the really good teams, the second and third string guys would be starting for just about anybody else. And you go to a small conference, the second and third string guys are not nearly as good as the first string guys. So if one guy is gone, you're missing a star running back, you're missing a star receiver or quarterback from last year. The drop off can be much bigger. So that's the type of things that I like to look for, is especially first, the coaching changes, and second, key guys gone or new key transfers in. And I will say, I think you've probably thought the same thing. This whole transfer portal thing definitely makes for a lot of pandemonium when it comes to power rating and trying to figure out what to do with some of these teams, because there's some of these guys that, these teams have about 30% of the returning players that they had last year back, and a bunch of them are just new transfers in.
Yeah, 100%. It's been the biggest difference in handicapping college football over the years, is now how big the transfer portal has become. It used to be a law where they used to have to sit out a year, couldn't even really do it from conference in the conference itself. And then it kind of got bigger with grad transfers, and just straight up, hey, I'm transferring out, and then NIL money. It's just all kind of compiled on itself to force thousands of kids these days in football and in basketball, even more in basketball, to go from team to team and trying to make a name for themselves, or go where it benefits them the way they play the game the most. So very important to pay attention to. Let's get into a few teams then that might significantly change their pacing philosophies. And a lot of times the books don't catch up on this. They'll just look at what they did last year. They'll throw out a line, and then all of a sudden you're going to be the first person to know, just based upon the offensive coordinator coming in. Possibly the defense gets a lot better, or the head coach itself. Kyle, we're going to do 5 of them. I have 5, but I'm going to let you go first, because I'm guessing that mine might overlap. So I'm going to let you fire off, and I'm going to see if I had one of the same 5.
All right, we'll start off with Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, a big change with Mark Whipple gone. Signetti comes in, a huge schematic change. No Pickett, no Addison, which I think Addison was a really big key to that offense too. Obviously, Pickett was a star, and everybody knows that, but Addison transferring out is a big hit to them. We've seen Pat Narduzzi, who is an interesting head coach, kind of spray some fire toward his old offensive coordinator in the offseason, saying, we could run the ball, but we wouldn't run the ball for some reason. Look, I mean, their offense was really good last year. It's surprising that he wants to bash his old offensive coordinator and talk about how they should have ran the football more against Wake Forest in the bowl game or whatever it is. It's so now he wants to run the football, and Cignetti is a guy that's going to do that. They're going to run the football far more than they did last year. No doubt that will change a lot. I think that their pace will slow down a lot as well. So I would expect to see a lot of clock killing drives where, you take the air out of the ball, you have some unders. Also, the Pitt run defense is elite as well. So if you face a team that's a good rushing team, I would really want to bet the under in this. And I will say to start, the first game against West Virginia is a tricky one because West Virginia is kind of the opposite. I didn't put it on my list of 5 here, but Graham Harrell, offensive coordinator, is going to speed them up. I want to take Pitt unders. But that first game's kind of a tricky one. So Pitt in general is one that I would like to take unders. I'll just keep going here. The second one I have Kansas State. Now, Kiev, I'm curious your opinion on this one. So I'll ask you a question here in a minute because Colin Klein, the new offensive coordinator here in this one, they keep talking about, I've read lots of quotes about playing faster. Now, it makes not a lot of sense to me because I didn't really think that was Chris Kleiman's style. They win low-scoring games. They win with defense. They were 127th in tempo last year, and they keep talking about playing faster. Now, I really don't expect Kansas State to turn into a really fast-paced team. The question is, how much quicker are they going to play? And I have in my notes here, maybe up to 80th or 85th or something like that in tempo out of 131 teams in the country. I'm kind of curious what you think about Kansas State because they're talking the talk about playing faster, but are they actually going to? Because usually they win with defense, special teams, running the football. So is Colin Klein going to be a big difference for Kansas State? Do you have an opinion on that one?
Well, the thing is that they now have Adrian Martinez from Nebraska, and he played a little bit of a faster tempo, obviously, with Scott Frost there. Scott Frost used to play even faster with UCF, but he found out it didn't really work in the Big Ten that well, and he kept putting his defense on its heels. So that makes me get pause here. I know Klein's going to want to speed it up a little bit, but Chris Kleiman, I believe he was at South Dakota State before he came in here. It was at
North Dakota State.
North Dakota State. Okay, but I do remember that they won based on defense too over there, and they won championships there. So it makes me like, why would he change his philosophy? This could be all smoke and mirrors, but Adrian Martinez did play a little faster. But Adrian Martinez is a great running quarterback. So I expect to be some more run and shoot type stuff, some more read option stuff possibly in this offense. And maybe when they want to do the read option, they want to do it a little faster to keep defense on their heels. But I agree because this was 127th in tempo last year with Kansas State, and moving up to 80 is fair, but but 80 is still slow. It's not. It's not. And so I agree with you. I think it's going to maybe move up a little just based on their quarterback, but I'm not going to think I'm going to be hammering the overs here, Kyle.
No, I think the other part about this is Martinez could lead to more points, because of his game state, the way that he turns the ball over. He could have pick sixes, he could have fumbles, run back for a touchdown. He could also break one for a touchdown. So maybe they have a little bit higher scoring games because of Martinez, even if they don't play terribly fast. Having said that, this is kind of one of those I want to see it to believe it type of things. I don't want to just hammer Kansas State overs either. So Pitt, I do want to bet unders. Like I said, I'm cautious about the first game. But the next one I have is Washington. Washington, the Huskies with Kalen DeBoer. Fresno State was 56th in tempo last year, which is actually a little bit slower than I expected them to be going into the season. Now, to be fair, they were winning a lot of their games, and then they slowed down their pace in the fourth quarter. So game state definitely matters as far as, if you're in a neutral game state, I think they would have played quicker than that. Washington, everything went wrong that could have possibly went wrong for Washington last year. I mean, you couldn't have had a worse season than they did. Lake didn't work out. We had all kinds of incidents on and off the field. Washington, their offense, I mean, they couldn't score against Montana. So their offense is going to be a lot better this year. Penix Jr., I do have in my notes that I kind of want to see him be good before I am sure that he's going to be very good here. He did have that major injury, and he hadn't really looked the same since that major injury. I think that Washington will be much improved on offense. I would expect them to speed up quite a bit. The defense also is not tremendous. I think that Washington, the great defenses that we saw a few years ago, we're not going to see here still. I would lean to taking overs with Washington this season. I will say 15 plays of 30 yards or more last year is all for Washington. I mean,
Ugh.
just atrocious. Utah State had 43. Washington could only put up 15. No big play offense. I think that will be quite a bit better. I would look for some overs here with Washington throughout the course of the season. The next one I had was Texas Tech. This one's pretty obvious, and this might have been one that you had in your notes as well. But Kitley comes over. He did a great job last year with Bailey Zappi. High octane passing game. It's a lot of fun to watch. I'm looking forward to watching Texas Tech this year. The question is Tyler Shook or Smith good enough to really be good in this offense at quarterback? Because there's no Bailey Zappi walking through the door here. Texas Tech is going to play some decent defenses in the Big 12. I think there are better defenses in the Big 12 than there used to be. At the same time, I think overs would be what I'd want to bet here because Texas Tech's defense lost quite a bit. I don't think they'll be a good defense. The tricky thing about this is I do think that this one's going to be out there. People know that Texas Tech's going to play fast. There's going to be some really high totals on Texas Tech games. So I'm not sure that there'll be great value betting the overs, but I am sure that it's going to be a big schematic change and something to keep an eye on. And then the last one I had, New Mexico State. So New Mexico State goes from Doug Martin to Jerry Kill. Jerry Kill is going to be a big change from him. I would say that they will be 110th or slower in tempo this year with New Mexico State. Last year, they were 28th. Now, they were 28th partially because they were losing all the time by so much that they had to play fast. And if you look at, if they're 110th, maybe they won't finish 110th because they're going to be losing so many games this year, but they will want to play as slow as they possibly can. And it will be a massive change here. He's had many, many quotes, has Jerry Kill, talking about running the football, keeping the defense off the field. You can't throw the ball when you have next to no quarterbacks. I mean, they don't even know what they're going to get out of any quarterback at New Mexico State. The defensive line is said to be improved for New Mexico State. This is a team that I would think would be lower scoring than last year. Their games would be lower scoring. So this is one I would keep an eye on. And like I said, this is an under the radar type team. New Mexico State's not going to be one that everybody's talking about right away. Now, if they have a really low scoring game in week 0, then maybe somebody will adjust by quite a bit. But I do think that Jerry Kill is an upgrade as a coach, first of all. And second, I think there'll be lower scoring games there.
Yeah, 100%. And now that you said those, I actually didn't have a couple of those. The Texas Tech one I did have is the big obvious one. I mean, but everyone knows that. Joey McGuire and head coach and Zach Kitley with the offensive coordinator was actually behind Cliff Kingsbury some of those years at Texas Tech. That's a big thing. And obviously coming from Sam Houston to Western Kentucky, now back to Texas Tech, it's just going to they're lightning speed at Western Kentucky. So just remember that was an over team all year long. The scores might get back into the 90s here, but you're right, Kyle. I don't know a lot about their defense. Their defense might be improved because the head coach is just that good of a coach, and he knows a lot about Texas and Joey McGuire. So I do wonder about that. Maybe team total overs is what you might look for Texas Tech. They could be a sneaky good team. I have a couple others as well, Kyle. TCU is going to play faster, I believe, with Sonny Dykes. A lot faster, I think, because SMU ranked last year with Dykes there 16th in tempo. But if you remember those TCU years where Dykes was there as a coordinator, they were high flying TCU. TCU used to be that big overs team, like remember we were betting back in 14, 15, 16, those years, right? Well, now that should come back to TCU a little bit, a completely rejuvenated team. And if they're good, that means they're going to run up the score. And so they might be a good ATS team to be on, especially against the worst teams. And then possibly even a fade if they're playing really good teams too, because they'll just run up the other team's score by keep going 3 and out. So keep that in mind. Duke should play a little slower with Mike Elko. He's a defensive mind from Texas A&M. Now, what I will say, Kyle, is I'm not sure if he can turn that horrible defense around this quickly. So I'm still worried that they're going to give up some points. But he is at least a defensive mind, and Duke was 8th in pace last year. similar to New Mexico State, that was a little bit exaggerated because they're trying to get back into games in a lot of cases. So that's an interesting one. I think Oregon's going to play a little slower. I expect the old Georgia defensive coordinator, Danny Lanning, taking over to kind of be more of a defensive mind there. And I think that just that Oregon doesn't have the offense that they have in the past. So he's going to kind of try to be a little bit more methodical, more of that way of thinking. And I also think that Georgia Southern might play faster with Clay Helton because they're an option team. Clay Helton is a spread offense kind of guy. Not saying that it's going to work, but this could be a fade team because of just the speed that they play. And some other teams might run up the score pretty bad in Georgia Southern. Any thoughts about those?
Yeah, Georgia Southern, I would highlight as a team that I want to fade because if you're going in that big of a change and you want to play that fast, it's probably not going to go very well to start with. And that might be one of those teams that you go ahead and take the other side, even if they are a decent sized favorite. Because, like you said, it's going to be easier for them to run up a score or get margin on them because Georgia Southern wants to play so fast, but I don't think they're going to be very good at it to start with. So that one stands out to me. And I think TCU is a great one as well. Oregon, I'm not sure about Kiev because Kenny Dillingham has played fast as OC in the past. So does Lanning tell him, we're going to play slow, we're going to have these low scoring games, or is their offensive coordinator going to come in and play quickly like he has before? I think that's one that I'd rather sit and wait and see what they do because Dillingham has some pretty good history of playing fast. Lanning, you would think, would want to play lower scoring games. So I'm not really sure what to think of Oregon.
Yeah, and is Bo Nix going to start there? Did we find that out yet?
Yeah, the Bo Nix experience.
Yeah, Bo Nix, I just don't see him as a fast-paced quarterback myself. Coming in from Auburn, they weren't exactly a high-paced team there. When they were behind, they kind of had to do a faster offense, but Bo Nix was just, more methodical in my opinion. But okay, well, we'll get into that a little bit because we're going to cover that game. But let's get into some games here. And week 0, we have Wyoming versus Illinois. Kyle, now Illinois is favored by 11. The total, 44 points. Interesting. What are your thoughts?
Kiev, I think you and I might disagree on this game. Usually we agree. So I'm going to side with Illinois on this one. Now, I liked it better at the earlier price, certainly. Wyoming has so much turnover from last year. I think Craig Bowl is a good coach, so I don't usually like to bet against him that much. And this is certainly not a big play for me or anything like that. This is one of those smaller just to have some action on a game. Pizza money bets, as Kiev says. But I think, Illinois laying the points here is not a bad look. Xavier Valade was Wyoming's second leading rusher all time. Really good running back. They have next to nobody at wide receiver for Wyoming. Their offensive line's not as good as they have been most years. Ryan Walters is a really good defensive coordinator for Illinois. I think he really helped them a lot last season. I don't see Wyoming scoring many points here. Wyoming switches quarterbacks there with Utah State, and I think they probably got the worst end of the trade here. And Wyoming, you look at their defense. The defense has usually been good. Chad Mumau, who was a star at linebacker, now plays for the Jaguars. I think that's going to be a massive loss for them. They're thin on the defensive line. What does Illinois like to do? Run the football over and over again. I don't think Wyoming can stop them from running the football here. Chase Brown is an underrated star, very good running back for Illinois. I'm not a huge fan of Brett Bielema. I imagine Kiev's not a huge fan of Brett Bielema either, but it's a coach that I think he's a decent coach. He knows what his team does well. They run the football well. I think that they will consistently do that. I'm not sure the Illinois passing game is very good, and I think that'll be a problem in Big Ten play. I don't know that they really have to pass the ball here against Wyoming very much at all. And, this is an Illinois defense that only gave up 3.78 yards per carry inside the Big Ten last year. So their run defense was pretty good. I don't think Wyoming can throw it against very many teams this year. And Wyoming running the football, probably not too much success. So I think that there's a fairly big talent gap in this game. So I would side with Illinois in this game.
Yeah, you're definitely not going to get too many compliments from me for Brett Bielema. And I don't really understand the whole like he's a good coach thing, because my whole thing was that when he was moved into Wisconsin's role, the team was created already under Barry, and Barry left kind of like erratically. It was kind of like, oh, he's out. It's like weird. Okay, Bielema will take over. Well, he took over a great roster, and he inherited Russell Wilson. That was pretty nice. Worked out pretty well for him, I'd have to say. But in the situation, I haven't seen him build a program. He went to Arkansas to try to fix it, and he made the program worse, in my opinion. I haven't seen that out of him. Now he's in Illinois. I think this is his second year now. It's his second or third. No, it's his second year. He did have some really weird, nice wins last year, but he had some really bad losses. I mean, when he went to Virginia, losing by 30 points or something like that, lost at home to Maryland, which was pretty inexcusable. UTSA, he lost by 7. UTSA was a good team. I don't want to hold that against him too much, but this game is more about, like, why is Illinois laying double digits and this total's 44 points? This is a massive spread for such a low total in this situation. This is saying that Wyoming's not going to score a lot of points. And the funny thing about Wyoming is they lose a lot more defense than they do offense. I know they lost some key guys you said on offense, and they switched their quarterback with this Peasley guy. But Wyoming's never like dipped into like New Mexico State territory in my power ratings. They've never dipped down to, I guess, Old Dominion, Charlotte, Massachusetts, right? None of those teams. They've always been, 6 to 8 points below the average team. But Illinois has never really risen above 1 or 2 positive points, in my opinion. So I just feel the spread's way too big for the total. And that's why I took it. Now, do I like it as much as before? No. Maybe Tommy DeVito does come in and look good, but Illinois also replaces 3 offensive linemen. Maybe DeVito's going to be stuck in the same situation that he was the year before, where he doesn't have a good offensive line. So I'm wondering about that. Just straight power ratings, I have Illinois -5, -5.5 here. So I thought when it hit the 10, it was too much. The problem is the Fighting Illini. Another interesting stat, they're 0-5-1 in their last 6 non-conference games. They just haven't played non-conference well over the last couple of years. I'm going to stick with my play, Kyle, but I don't like it as much either.
I think, Kiev, I think our difference here is on Wyoming. I think we agree on what Illinois is. I just think Wyoming's a lot worse than they have been a lot of these other years. So I think that's where our difference is in ratings of these two teams is I think Wyoming's going to drop off a lot. Maybe by the end of the season, Bull will have coached them up, but I don't like them going into this season. And my number here was 12.5. So pretty big difference. I don't think Illinois is great by any means, but I think they're really good at one thing, and that's running the football. And I think they'll be able to do it here.
Well, if I didn't downgrade Wyoming enough, we're going to find out week 0. Let's move into the next game. North Texas versus UTEP. UTEP +1, total 55. I'll start on this one. These two teams is kind of teams I actually liked last year. If you remember, UTEP was one of my first season win totals that cashed over 2.5 for plus money. I thought this was a year, but they had some really good receivers last year, and they lost some of those guys. And so, looking at their advanced stats, some of the stuff was smoke and mirrors that they did when they stepped up in competition. I thought they really did get beat. They got to beat up on some of the worst teams. But, North Texas is a fast-paced team. Didn't always put it together in the red zone. I remember some overs I lost on them last year just because, they played the pace and then they would get to the 35 and then something would happen with them. It was very strange. While UTEP is slow in pace. They were 114th in pace. I have in my numbers anyway last year. But they're also at home. The home team usually gets the nod in these weird conference USA situations, and it's very early. But I have North Texas as a better team, but slightly. I have it right at the spread. I have North Texas -1, so I don't have a play. But I do kind of like North Texas the week after that. So I'm just going to hope for some line value for week 1. What are your thoughts?
Well, Kiev, that was a great play on UTEP season win total over last year. Talk about a snoozer of a win there, certainly. But I'm looking at UTEP's schedule from last year, like you said. I mean, who did they beat that was good? They really didn't beat anybody that was good. They beat the teams they're supposed to beat. When they stepped up in competition, they really weren't very good. You look at UTEP's schedule this year and their roster, A couple things really stand out to me about UTEP. You mentioned UTEP lost a lot on offense. Cowing was a tremendous receiver. Garrett was also very good. And Hardison, while he's not a bad quarterback, he took a lot of deep shots to Cowing and Garrett, and they ended up working. They were third in explosiveness in the country. They had a lot of big negative plays on offense, not a good running team. They were able to get out of that trouble by just chucking it up and getting these deep passes to Cowing and Garrett. Now both of those guys are gone. I really think their offense is worse than they were last year by quite a bit. UTEP, what are they on defense is another good question. I think UTEP is very good in run defense. I think they're weak in the secondary this year, so it'll be a split team. Now, you go and look at North Texas. Remember, they started last year, what was it, maybe 1-5 or 1-6 or something, and everybody said Luttrell's going to be gone. Then they run off 5 wins in a row, make a bowl game. They come into this season looking pretty good. I like North Texas as a team better than I like UTEP. And if I had to bet this game, I would bet North Texas here. I do think they're the better team. UTEP being at home, pretty good home field advantage there in El Paso, a game that's going to get some attention. Made me stay off of this one. My number here was North Texas -2. So we're pretty close here on numbers. The Mean Green have a really good offensive line. I think North Texas will usually be able to run on teams. UTEP is a good run defense, like I said, so it's kind of strength on strength. North Texas was +23 in sack margin last year. Part of that was because they only gave up 15 sacks. They also had a really good pass rush. But I think that North Texas is the team that I would rather back. But to be honest with you, I think they're both pretty well-coached teams, and I'd rather stay away from this one and wait and see. Now, the total is also interesting in this game because in general, I like North Texas overs and I like UTEP unders. So we have clashing styles here. If UTEP gets the lead in this game, I think this could be a low-scoring game because they're going to try to burn the clock. North Texas gets ahead, it could be totally different. At the same time, last year they played a 20-17, I believe, 2017 final, and 20-17, 6.2 yards per play for UTEP, but they did lose. They lost the turnover battle by 5.2 yards per play for North Texas. And Kiev, Austin Awney, the quarterback for North Texas, and he's about to turn 30 years old here before long. So 29 years old starting quarterback in college. You don't see that very often. But I think North Texas is a team that I would rather back here throughout the season. And I am kind of close to betting North Texas. I might even put a little bit of pizza money here on North Texas because that's definitely the side I prefer.
All right, let's put some pizza money on because we kind of agree with that. Yeah. And Danny Werfel was the one what made me think of the quarterback that was like 27, 28 years old when he played in college here. So that's very interesting. But no, I'm going to lean very strongly North Texas as well. Let's move on to college football week 1. We have some games already we're going to talk about for next week. These lines are out, so might as well get them while they're hot. Cincinnati versus Arkansas. Arkansas -6.5, total 52. Kyle, I'll let you get started on this one.
So this is a game, Kiev, going into it. I kind of expected to like Cincinnati. And my number is right about exactly at the number here. But I thought, man, Cincinnati getting a full touchdown. You have to lean toward a really well-coached team getting a full touchdown. I break this game down, and there's a lot of interesting things going on in this one. Obviously, both teams lost a bunch. I mean, Cincinnati lost a ton from last year. Arkansas lost Burks, their star receiver. Arkansas on offense is going to be all about the run. KJ Jefferson was 13th in PFF grade of any Power 5 quarterback last year, but I think the wide receivers at Arkansas are pretty weak now. So the question is, can Arkansas run the football? Well, Alabama just ran it all over Cincinnati, and Cincinnati's run defense is probably worse this year. And you could make an argument that Arkansas has as good an offensive line as does Alabama, because Arkansas is very good on the offensive line. Their coach, obviously a good offensive line guy. And, I think that, this is one where Cincinnati, you have so many changes. Gino Guidugli, the new offensive coordinator there, they're going to run the same type of offense. A weird situation with Ben Bryant, right? He transfers out and then comes back. It's like, hey, actually, I'm coming back, guys. I mean, that seems awfully weird to me. The teammates kind of like, hey, look who's back. I wouldn't be terribly excited about a guy who just left to try to come back and take the job over again. Cincinnati's running backs are kind of weak with injuries and transfers out being an issue, but their offensive line's their best unit on either side of the ball at this point. You can't lose Sauce Gardner and Kobe Bryant, not drop a lot in the secondary. Arkansas is probably not the team to make them pay on that. But, you look at Arkansas on the other side. Arkansas has a good secondary. Jalen Catalon leads that group. Drew Sanders, a good transfer in from Alabama at linebacker. And then Bumper Pool, what a great name and a great leader at linebacker. I have to say Bumper Pool when I talk about Arkansas. It's just so sorry, Kiev, in advance. We talk about Arkansas. I'm saying Bumper Pool. But Arkansas, as I look at this game more, like I said, I thought I initially would lean Cincinnati. But I'm concerned here that Arkansas is going to be able to run the football too well. So can Arkansas kind of just control the line of scrimmage, win this game with their running attack? I would say I probably will not bet this game, but my slight lean now is Arkansas minus the 6.5. It came off the key number 7, obviously. At 6.5, I'll lean Arkansas here. I have no idea what to do with this total either, Kiev, because these two teams are a lot different. Like I said, I don't think Cincinnati's defense is as good as they were, but Fickell's a really good defensive mind, and I don't think they'll drop way off. So I'm curious to see your thoughts on this game too.
Yeah, it's a great game to watch. But this might be the most interesting game in college football week 1. And I say interesting because you have the team that got to the playoffs last year that they beat Notre Dame, right? They took care of business, looked great in their championship game. I mean, everyone tried to hate on Cincinnati last year, but they just couldn't because Cincinnati kept proving everybody wrong. And they had some hiccups. They should have beat Indiana by more. They were actually losing that game for a little while. But when they brought it together, I thought they did a fantastic job. But now you have Desmond Ridder that's out, who's been there forever. And he's trying out for Atlanta right now. And everyone's waiting to see if he's going to be a starter there, which I kind of predict, actually. But they also lost some key receivers and some key defense. Evan Prater is their top recruit, the biggest recruit they ever had at quarterback. I believe he has 4 stars, but he's being recruited like that and going to a school like Cincinnati really says a lot. Arkansas lost their stud receiver, as we know, Treylon Burks, but they got Jason Hazelwood from Oklahoma, right? They also got a stud linebacker from Alabama and Drew Sanders. They got some pretty good transfers in, so you got to look at that. The transfer portal really helped this team. I was back and forth as well, Kyle, on this game. But Cincinnati was 3rd last year in EPA margin, while Arkansas was 39th. Now, its strength of schedule needs to be factored into that because most of the EPA stats I see, strength of schedule is not factored in yet. So that's very important. I will say that the Hogs had some very big plays that went their way last year. So there could be some regression. Their quarterback has a ton of leg talent, but now with some tape on him, maybe they can be shored up a little bit. I have Arkansas minus 5.25 based upon power ratings and home field advantage. I wouldn't be shocked if Cincinnati keeps this close or backdoors a touchdown here, maybe down by 10, maybe down by 12 points, and they get something that would actually cover this spread, Kyle. I think you're going to learn a lot about these two teams, and that's going to be worth watching in itself for future betting, right?
Absolutely. I think that's the key to this game is we'll learn a lot about both these teams going forward. We'll know a lot more as far as what we might want to bet going forward.
Sounds good. Well, Houston versus UTSA, and UTSA is +6. The total on this one is up to 61.5. I think it was down a little bit lower. I thought I heard you on a show talking about that maybe a month or so ago. This is an interesting game between the Conference USA champion and like the runner-up to the American Athletic Conference. We just talked about Cincinnati, obviously. UTSA returns a ton of offense. It's pretty much everyone minus Sincere McCormick, right? But they lost a fair amount of defense. Their defense wasn't really their hot spot either. They kind of kept having to prove it and win at the end of the games. I believe Western Kentucky was one of the teams that they had to beat to get in the championship. And what I will say is that Houston's kind of the dark horse for everyone in the American Athletic. They like them more than the favorite Cincinnati, and these guys are almost co-favorites because Houston's very, up there in the numbers. You only get like maybe 2.5 to 1 or something like that for them to win the AAC, while Cincinnati's a little bit lower. So I think that Houston had that massive defense last year. Now they replace a lot of those guys, But Doug Belk was fantastic, and they were ninth in defensive EPA last year. I think that's where they can give UTSA some fits. Let's face it, Conference USA, man, they're probably the worst conference in college football. I used to say it was the Sun Belt. Sometimes I used to say it was the MAC, maybe. It is the worst in college football, and UTSA, I guess, is towards the top. But I'm wondering if they get stuffed against this great Houston defense, I see big margin for Houston that could actually happen here. Houston's got to attack this game with a lot of motivation because it's going to set their whole, obviously their year up. And Sincere McCormick, while he wasn't a high draft pick, Kyle, he was a massive part of this offense. And I am worried about losing that key player. Could be a little bit more of a honeymoon year now that they won Conference USA. We saw that happen to San Jose State when they won it, returned all the guys, and they actually got crushed the next year in the Mountain West. So it's very possible that they could let down this year. My power ratings are very close to the number, but I actually believe that Houston does pull away due to their strong defense, ranking fourth in success rate. You know, I like Houston. I took them -5.5. I kind of like them at -6. I endorse that for a few stars.
Yeah, for me, I wish I bet the over, Kiev. This was 59 on August 1st. Let's be honest. First of all, a lot of people don't like it too much if you bet a game, months in advance. Clients, they're not able to get on that number. They miss out because they bought right before the season. So I like to try to wait. And number two, life happens. You finally take a family vacation, you do other stuff, and you're doing baseball. And once you come back and the line's at 61.5 or 62, kind of a bummer. It is what it is as far as that. I still would lean to the over. I think that, Houston is a team that Clayton Tune's underrated as a quarterback. He's done really good with Holgerson's offense. I think that Houston will have success here against the UTSA defense that has got some major concerns, especially at cornerback. Houston front seven defensively is really good. Their top two corners are gone as well, though. I think Harris and the UTSA offense will have success moving the ball through the air. Actually, last year, Harris was really good. I think he's underrated as well. I do agree with you that Conference USA is the weakest. I would say the MAC is the second weakest now. Sunbelt has gotten a lot better here in the last few seasons. As far as this game, it's hard for me to bet this one. I will say Houston was 18th in offensive explosiveness last year, 22nd in passing play success rate. Tank Dell is a beast. No one from UTSA can defend him. I think that Houston will move the ball easily through the air. I do think UTSA can move the ball quite a bit through the air as well. So again, I still lean the over. This game means a lot to UTSA. They're kind of seen as a little brother down there. So they will be motivated for this game, certainly. And the Alamo Dome is a tremendous home field advantage, no doubt about that. Houston's the better team. I don't want to bet the side. I still lean the over here for me.
All right, lean the over. I looked at the over and I kind of got priced out of it too, Kyle. I thought that there's just a chance that Houston's defense could be that good and maybe win this going away. And that's why I went to the spread instead. So I guess when I look at my fear on the over, that's what it is. So that kind of helped me push me towards the side itself. But a team total is not a terrible look either. I think Houston's going to get their points. The question is, can UTSA kind of keep up with them coming into this game? Wait till those team totals come out, guys. Utah versus Florida. Florida +2. Total is at 51. Now, Kyle, this line stinks, man. It smells. And I have a play on this one. A little concerned about it, but I'm gonna see if you have anything for this great game. This can be a fantastic game to watch.
Yeah, I mean, sporting the Utes hat today and the Oddsbreakers shirt, by the way. So the Oddsbreakers shirt with the Utes hat. I like Utah as a team. I like Kyle Whittingham. I think he's a tremendous coach. Somehow still underrated by a lot of people. ATS wise, I think he's 56 or 57% ATS in his career. So if you just bet on his teams every single game, you've made a lot of money. Napier's a good coach. I think that he'll do a good job with Florida. There is no doubt that this is a tricky game because Florida has a ton of talent. If you just look at number of recruits brought in, Florida would have higher recruiting ranking than does Utah. but Florida has a lot more turnover. They have a new system. You know, Whittingham coached teams. I thought this was a kind of interesting stat. Whittingham coached teams either as a dog or favored by less than a touchdown are 60 and 43 against the spread since 2008. They're 7-1 against the spread in the last 8. You know, this is a coach that's done a good job having his team ready to go. They have a top 6 or 8 offensive line in the country. Their defensive line's always amazing. We know Utah is well known for their defensive lines. I don't think Florida is going to have a ton of success running the football. And do I really trust the Florida offense to throw the ball on Utah? I mean, Utah's secondary is not very good compared to their front seven. But I think it was a little unfair that people say, well, Utah's secondary is terrible. Remember what Ohio State did last year. They had guys that were backup running backs playing cornerback because they were so thin on depth. They're definitely better than that in the secondary. And I mean, Florida's not exactly Ohio State throwing the ball around. So, you know, this is a Florida team that I think is going to be built around the run. Richardson, probably a good fit at quarterback for this offense. However, he definitely needs to cut down on his turnover-worthy plays have been way too often. I mean, that's going to be an issue if he keeps turning the ball over so much, even after those big plays to get good field position, he gives it to the other team. Florida's defensive line allowed 4.5 yards per carry last year. I think Patrick Toney is a good defensive coordinator. They will improve upon that this year. Cam Rising's a really good quarterback for Utah. They were much better when he came in there. I think that this line does stink. I agree with Kiev on this. I'm going to lean Utah in this one. I have not bet this game. I'm not sure I will bet this game, but I trust Whittingham to have his team ready. I think this is a really big game for both teams, obviously. And Utah with the veteran program, really good coach, not much turnover. I'll take the Utes here.
All right. You know, the Florida did well in the swamp, especially in the beginning, right? They gave Alabama a run for. They should have beat Alabama. They lost by 2 points right at home. Then they beat Tennessee by like 14 points. And Tennessee was an up and coming team last year, if you remember. Their first game was against FAU, and they won by double digits. And then, you know, all of a sudden they get Vanderbilt, win 42-0. They had that hiccup before that at Kentucky, but all their bad losses was away. At LSU, they lost, 42-49. Then the Georgia game was on that neutral field in Jacksonville, 34-7. Then at South Carolina, 40-17. And then everyone's saying that they possibly gave up. They play Samford, and they're losing to Samford at home. And then they end up catching up in the second half, 70-52 against Samford. It was just very strange. Dan Mullen lost the team, and then they lost at Missouri after that. And then everyone said they gave up. Everyone bet Florida State, and they ended up beating Florida State at home. And they lost to UCF without a lot of players in that bowl game. It was really a weird, embarrassing year. But they're still a good home team, and that's why this line stinks, is because they look at Utah away from home, because Utah is such a great home team themselves, and they look at Florida, and they're also looking at the strength of the SEC in general. But there's a couple things like you mentioned. Utah didn't have their cornerbacks when they played Ohio State, and they looked terrible. But in my opinion, that just motivates their defense in this situation. I think they come up. Billy Napier, great coach, amazing at Louisiana. We won a lot of money. He's got the perfect quarterback for a system in Anthony Richardson, who's big, can run the ball, get those couple extra yards. But I mean, Utah is no slouch on defense. They've always been strong on defense, and they stand up to it. How can you bet Florida with Billy Napier the first year on the first program in the first week? It just makes no sense to me. Going against a team that has national championship aspirations, went toe-to-toe with Ohio State at least for most of that game. That was a fun game. And the biggest thing for me is a big intangible part that these kids are lost kind of in a way that USC and UCLA is leaving the Pac-12, going to the Big Ten. Obviously, Oklahoma and Texas going to the SEC. It's almost like this game they need to just kick the butt out of the SEC. They need to show that, hey, look, we're deserving to go to the SEC or Big Ten or wherever we want. I think that's going to be an intangible factor in these kids' mind. They just saw USC and UCLA leave. They're the champions. What is going on here? I almost like that motivational aspect of it from an intangible spot. I laid the -2, and made a pretty sizable play for an early play, Kyle.
All right, I like it. We agree on this one. I think Utah is just the team that we know what we're going to get out of Utah, in my opinion. Obviously anything can happen in one game, but Utah is the known commodity here. Florida is too big of an unknown to bet them here in game one.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to the final game. Maybe the best game week one, Oregon versus Georgia. Well, 17-point favorite, probably not, but look at Ohio State against Notre Dame. That's like a 15.5-point favorite anyway. Now, I have a play in this game too. But what I want to say, this kind of goes back to what I said about change of pace. Now, you disagreed a little bit with it, but I did look up here about Kenny Dillingham. When he was the offensive coordinator of Florida State, they scored 25 points a game. It's not like his philosophies did much. And it came to the part where they were embarrassed in a way and had to slow it down some. So I almost think that Dan Lanning will kind of keep him in check. He knows the plays, but I think they're going to work together. But here's the thing. You're going to play fast against Georgia. In that situation, it's just going to show for a blowout and really start you off on a bad foot. Nobody knows the offense better than Kirby Smart, but if anyone's close, it's the defensive coordinator last year, Dan Lanning. And Dan Lanning goes to Oregon. He's going to kind of know what to expect. Now, Georgia's got a lot of turnover too. I trust Georgia's defense. Georgia's defense wants to shut their old coach out. These kids don't want Oregon to score. That just might happen. But at the same time, this coach knows exactly what Georgia can do and all of their strengths and weaknesses on offense. I like the under. I played under 52. I just see lots of ways you can have. I can see Georgia winning 30-3. I can see just a methodical, terrible first half going back and forth. Great coaching matchup. Nothing gets by. We have to remember that Oregon also is a top 4-star, 5-star recruiting type team, and they do return some defense as well. So I think there's just too many ways the under it can hit. I hit under 52, Kyle.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. That would certainly be my lean on a total in this game is the under. Bo Nix, that's going to be the experience going on again here. I will say I don't think Anthony Brown was very good for Oregon, so I think Nix might be a bit better than him. At least good Bo Nix is better than him, but we've seen that Bo Nix can be really bad at times too. Tosh Lupoy comes in as a defensive coordinator, and obviously Lanning's a really good defensive mind. I think Lupoy will do a good job. Dillingham has played fast in some of the years. They weren't very efficient on offense. So I don't know. I agree with you that it wouldn't make too much sense for them to try to play really fast in this game because it just makes it easier for Georgia to get margin. I do want to say Georgia had an amazing season last year. They were a really fun defense to watch. I do hear some people saying, well, Georgia recruits so well that they're not even down. It's really hard to say that Georgia's not going to be down from last year. I mean, they had Jordan Davis, people like that roaming all over the place. They're going to be down some from last year. So we can't make it sound like they're not going to be any worse than last year. But their defense is going to be very good. Their secondary with Ringo leading the way, very good. Georgia was 10-5 against the spread last year, and they won the national championship. It's going to be hard to find value betting Georgia after that kind of season. And I don't want to, diss Stetson Bennett or anything, but Stetson Bennett's still only a pretty good quarterback. He had a good championship game. I like Stetson Bennett. This is a guy that I like to root for, but he is still somewhat limited. He's not a great quarterback by any means. And you look at what's around him now compared to last year, Kiev. They had 2 star running backs. They're both gone. Now, are they deep enough to still be pretty good at running back? Yeah, but instead of having a top 2 or 3 running back unit in the country, maybe they're top 20. And that's a pretty big difference. And then you lose the wide receivers, Pickens, Burton. These are guys from Georgia that are going to be massive losses on offense. I don't think Georgia's offense is as good as they were last year. Now, Bowers is tremendous, obviously, and he'll be the go-to guy. But I think that in general, Oregon's defense is probably better than most people would give them credit for being. Everybody knows they lost Thibodeau, but their defense is still going to be a good defense. They're coached by a defensive guy. The question is, how high is Oregon's ceiling? I don't know that Oregon can actually beat a team like Georgia. I don't even think their very best can beat Georgia. Now, 17.5 points is too much for me. There's no way I'm laying the points with Georgia here. So my lean on a side is Oregon. But I kind of lean that way because of what you said. I do think this will probably be a lower scoring game. 17.5 points is a ton of points for a total of 52, especially if you actually think the game might be played in the 40s or something. So I'm going to lean Oregon and the under in this one.
All right, Oregon and I, yeah, a lot of points in this one. Oregon did do well against Ohio State last year in that early game. I think it was that first or second game. It was the second. Okay, so it was something to think about, but different coach still, different mindsets. You have consistency at Georgia, but these two guys kind of going at it feels like more of a chess match than more of like a free for all types of situation. So I'm excited for the game. I think this under goes down too. So we'll see where this thing goes from the 52. Kyle, thank you so much for coming in and breaking down these big games. I'm so excited for some college football, my man. Where could our listeners and viewers get your great information and plays?
Yeah, thanks for having me again, Kiev. Always fun. Go to huntersportspicks.com. You can sign up for the free picks newsletter there. 58% wins in the last 205 free plays. So that's gone really well. And looking forward to the season ahead and the free plays that we'll have throughout the course of the season. Also, the early bird specials up there. Like I said, you can follow me on Twitter at Kyle Hunter Picks. Follow along this year, and let's hope we can have another great ride here for college football.
All right, let's do it. Jeffy just chimed in. Can't wait to see Bama and Texas A&M. All right, it sounds like a SEC fan chiming in. That's it. Yeah, I love it. Bama's going to want some revenge. That's going to be a wonderful game as well. Very excited for college football. Thanks again, Kyle. We'll be chatting soon.
Thanks. Take care.